the debate. Our source material today dives into the really profound influence of language, describing it as a transformative power. And that brings us to a pretty fundamental question. Is language basically the architecture that actively shapes how we think and how our cultures develop? Or is it fundamentally more of a vessel, reflecting realities and values that already exist? I'll be arguing that language is the active shaper. It's the blueprint.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm going to take a slightly different angle on that. While I absolutely agree its power is, well, undeniable, I see language primarily serving as the reflection. It's the mechanism for transmitting deeper cognitive patterns and cultural realities that are already in place. It operates within that feedback loop we talk about, the mind-culture feedback loop.
See, I think language is much more than just a tool for communication. It's really the fundamental structure that thought itself is built on. My position is that language actively constructs our reality by guiding our memory, channeling our attention, and imposing its own unique grammatical structures. Language actually determines how we interpret abstract concepts. Just think about those Cook Thiar speakers mentioned in the material. They have to orient time spatially using cardinal directions. That linguistic requirement, it forces a constant orientation, which fundamentally changes their cognitive process for organizing reality. That makes language the deep code, the blueprint.
Okay, that's a compelling case for its structural impact, I grant you that. But I'd argue those structures primarily reflect the cultural needs and social realities that already exist. Culture provides the essential context, right? Language develops within that context. So I see language as this powerful vessel, really, designed to transmit and reinforce cultural norms that are already deeply embedded. Take Japanese honorifics, for example. The language isn't creating the social hierarchy there. It's meticulously mirroring it, maintaining a social reality that's pre-existing. It clearly shows language acting as a potent reflector of social structure.
I understand that perspective, but let's dig a bit deeper into how it shapes perception, what I'm calling cognitive primacy. The structure itself forces new ways of seeing. The source material talks about Russian speakers, right? They have distinct words for light blue and dark blue, and this actually affects how they visually process color. That linguistic cue forces us really, to notice and categorize experiences in very specific different ways. Language acts like a filter, actively determining which bits of reality we're pushed to process as distinct categories.
That's an interesting point about forced categorization, yeah. But I'm just not convinced you can really separate thought from its social context like that. Cultural necessity, the shared values, beliefs, customs that guides how people pay attention and solve problems in the first place. This whole thing is better explained by the mind-culture feedback loop, isn't it? The idea that our collective mental structures influence society and society then feeds back to reinforce and transmit those structures. So those Russian color distinctions you mentioned, they could easily be a cultural adaptation, maybe something prioritized in their environment. Language just sustains that established cognitive habit, the need, the focus. It comes before the word.
Okay, that's the fair description of the feedback loop, perhaps at the individual or small group level. But let's scale this up. What about language's role in shaping our collective future, our technology? The source material really emphasizes language as a driver. It says, the words we choose will help define the world we create. Language seems to be the critical mechanism for scaling up global interactions, acting as both a bridge and filter in complex diplomacy. I'd even argue the conceptual leap towards artificial intelligence is in itself a kind of linguistic evolution. It shows language driving human progress.
I agree. Language expresses those high-level changes really well. But look at the historical journey, from basic stone tools to written language, then digital computing. Wasn't that fundamentally driven by evolving human technological skill and, sheer mental capacity? Language articulated these shifts. Sure, we created terms for quantum entanglement or programming concepts, but it felt secondary to the actual progress. These breakthroughs in areas like brain-computer interfaces, they're rooted in neurology and engineering. Language follows, providing the concepts needed to institutionalize the change, yes, but the foundational progress wasn't architected by the words themselves.
Well, ultimately, my position still hinges on language's core structural power, its ability to genuinely change perception and build the really complex shared understandings we need for things like empathy and collective action, its power to construct new possibilities. That's what makes it the true architecture of our shared future, I believe.
And I'd say the profound influence of language is absolutely clear. No one's denying that. But for intellectual clarity, we have to recognize its duality. It's basically impossible to fully pull language apart from the human cognition and culture it both reflects and transmits. You really need both views, I think, to fully grasp the complex, interwoven nature of society and thought.